This is going to be kind of a first draft video on the subject of philosophy versus psychology, and kind of related, the difference in our brains between thoughts and feelings. Consciousness just isn't the one thing. It isn't just thinking, and it isn't just feeling. There are two different components, and I guess the feeling part, I would argue, is the substantive part. Thinking we can artificially manifest or create. We could probably attach some extra gray matter to our brains and create more thinking potential. But feelings are a lot more, that's more the hidden nature of consciousness. That's the part we really don't or can't understand. We understand the logic behind thinking. We understand the connections and how pieces of information would be connected. But feelings, sensation is a whole different kind of instrument. You can't even really imagine artificially creating feelings. But anyway, so it's sort of related to the stick cam conversation, and it's something, this really has to be said in the right way, and I'm not going to do it in this video, so that's why I'll call it a first draft, because it's just sort of to open the subject. Because it's really irritating, because a lot of people are talking their psychology. They're arguing what they feel, what they intuit, what their emotions tell them. They're almost arguing their preferences and prejudices almost directly, and calling that philosophy. And it's not philosophy. Philosophy has to be defined as something better than that. It can't be something that you run through your emotional filter. It has to be run through a logical filter, a rational filter. And it's just really irritating, because what I will call the subjectivists, very similar to the phantasmagoricalists, really, they can't see anything. They can't argue anything but from their own emotions. It's based on what I feel, how attached I am to a person. I mean, you can't even give them a thought experiment where they can obey the rules of the thought experiment, because they automatically just pervert it into, well, is she wearing a yellow hat? I like yellow hats. Is it a person I know, or is it, they're always perverting it into something where they have to make it an emotional question rather than a rational question, a logical question, a balancing of values determined by principles, ideas, concepts, not decided by whether it's warm and fuzzy or whether it makes them feel good. I mean, that's not how we define reality. And so, in a conversation about the meaning of life, it's not the meaning of your life. It's the meaning of life on Earth. It's what is consciousness doing. It has to be about the whole system, not about individuals and what they experience. We certainly learn from our personal experience. We learn by being conscious beings and having things like sensations and thoughts. But that education has to be transferred into our intellect as knowledge, not as an opinion, not as a judgment based on how you emotionally feel about the idea. I mean, you shouldn't be believing in God or not believing in God because one makes you feel better. That's not how we define whether or not there is a God. I mean, and that's what it's almost coming down to. Matt's arguments are getting so lost in experiential and whatever that other word he uses all the time, phenomenological. It's not about phenomenons and experiences. It's about defining the truth and the reality, the structure of the system. And because he's finding an excuse now to inject feelings into atoms. I mean, we're all the way back down to atoms again, and they somehow have a motivation, a desire, an impulse, within them, to combine. They don't combine because the laws of physics demand it. No, they do it because they have an impulse, and it's ludicrous, and it just defeats it. Whatever. There's no way it fits any of the facts we know about the origins of consciousness, the origins of and the practical structure of a nervous system. I mean, one last analogy made in one video was just so preposterous. Well, you can't interchange the parts of us because if you touch our parts, we die. No, you just as like a computer, you can turn it off, you can put it on suspend, you can fuck with it, and then you turn it back on. And people, they do the same things with human beings. They shut us off, fuck with us, and then turn us back on again. That's just, it's whatever. I mean, it's just, that's how desperate he's getting, is that he wants to keep trying to make us into something other than a biological machine, and that's what we are. We're a biological machine. And the only real magical part, if we're going to use that silly word magical, the part we don't understand, the trick, the illusion, is this creation of consciousness, this creation of a feeling. It's like I say, thoughts we can sort of logically, that can make sense. The arrangement of neurons and connections that would have information stored in them through the arrangement makes sense, okay? But the idea of I'm hungry this much is that you can't, there's no way to digitize that. There's no way to make that precise. There's no way to quantify a feeling, at least not precisely or easily, through just, it's not logically apparent. So that's the real game here. But the bottom line is that we know where it came from. We see the animals it exists in, all right? And it's just a mechanism. It's just a tool used by natural selection through the evolution of this blueprint molecule. Okay, and it is a blueprint molecule. I mean, that's another, Matt wants to take all the important, he's trying to strip the genetics of its importance, and we know its fucking importance. I mean, if you pull my DNA out and inject it into another cell, you will create my cell. That's the way it works. We see how heredity works. I mean, you're not only insulting Darwin, now you're attacking Mendel. I mean, we know the probabilities of how traits are passed down, and it's very precise, and it's a blueprint. There's probably better, more perfect words, but blueprint is a perfectly adequate word for describing what it is. It's the instructions on how to build the duplicate of the instructions, so whatever. It's just so irritating to have to have this conversation, because it's gotten so insane, so distant from these simple truths that we freaking know. And it's just like it's just all this contrived, crap that they're trying to pile on life to make it more meaningful, or to make it meaningful, period. And it's just that, it's crap. So at any rate, like I said, we know what feelings, we know why they exist. The logic is obvious. I mean, obviously an animal that has an ambiguous impulse is going to be able to suspend behavior. If he has two different competing impulses, it's possible for his behavior to be a combination of a response rather than a direct response. He's no longer a reflexive organism that always behaves the same way under different circumstances, merely by having enough triggers to make the behavior happen. It now can behave in a much more complex way, because he has this tension that's built up, and the tension isn't released until there's this final perceptual triggers that release the tension, and the go signal is given, or the chew signal, or whatever the go attack it signal. But we know it makes behavior much more sophisticated, and it makes it much more adaptable. Each individual is able to adapt to their circumstances, to their particular circumstances, and they're not all the same anymore. And so it creates an evolutionary advantage, and that's why it exists in so many mammals and so many animals. That's why it's been fucking successful on planet Earth. It's because animals that have that capacity are likely to be able to capitalize environments. They're likely to be able to control them. And so it's just that's the origins of it. There's no in the design of matter itself the end to where it is just by its very nature tends to create any of this shit. That's not anywhere, and there's no evidence that there's any such tendency, and that we are some future version of ourselves is anything like a goal of evolution, because it's not. We're just one of the possible manifestations of a consuming and reproducing life form. And I'm out of time.